So welcome back, everybody. So great to see all of you and so many friendly faces and familiar names, and great to have you here. It's Ryan Nemec and Ruth Pierce coming to you from the VIA Institute on Character, trying as best we can to bring forth this space, a space for you, for us, for all of us to have, just to be with ourselves, to practice mindfulness, to remember our character strengths, to breathe a little bit more deeply. It's so hard to find the space in today's world, I think, to breathe. So it's a place for you to do your deep breathing, remember your strengths, and to connect with one another. This week's theme, as you know, is a journey through some specific character strengths. Next week, we'll move into loving gratitude, meditation, and practice. And we'll come back to other specific strengths at a future week. We focused on curiosity. We moved then into social intelligence. And now we're moving into appreciation of beauty and excellence, which I think Ruth and I are particularly excited about because it's a signature strength for both of us. So it's a strength that each of us draws on very closely and gets a lot of energy and nourishment and stress management and joy out of tapping into. So we're delighted to be able to offer you some ways of thinking about this particular character strength. And as we've been doing this week, spending a little bit more time on some of the research around each of the strengths, while also trying to be very practical with tools and strategies. So the way that this session will be framed is it's hearkening back to when I used to lead these movie night experiences. So at a Unity church in St. Louis for 6 or 7 years, I led a monthly movie experience where I would offer some kind of lecture or input on the strength or the virtue that was going to be prominent in the movie. And then we watched the movie, usually a popular movie, in its entirety. So whether it was something like Patch Adams talking about humor, or whether it was Amelie and talking about kindness, or whether it's Life is Beautiful and talking about creativity, some kind of movie we would watch in its entirety together. And then we would discuss the film afterward about the spiritual themes or the character strengths themes, the virtue themes that were in the movie. And woven throughout the process intentionally, throughout all those 3 phases, was mindfulness meditation. And so becoming present to ourselves as we watch the movie, and becoming present to ourselves, to what's stirring inside us after the movie, before we get into the discussion. So it was all sort of a journey through the present moment. And so we're going to do that in a very, very, very condensed way here. And Ruth and I are thinking maybe we need to do this at VIA in a more extensive way, like offer quarterly movie nights with character strengths. So we might actually do that. So we're going to do that here. So what I'd like to do is offer you some information about appreciation of beauty and excellence, and ways to think about it, some ways to apply it, how it maps out. Then we're going to watch a clip, very short, about a minute and a half long. And then we'll move into a meditation on that particular clip, and then we'll be able to discuss it in our discussion point. So we're going to kind of keep to that thread of the movie night experience. So the character strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence. So to offer a framework, there's 3 main types of beauty that researchers have been looking at, and when we think about this character strength. So one is beauty in nature. Another is the beauty or excellence in the skills of others. And then the other is the beauty of the moral acts of other people. And so we're going to get into each of these 3. But I just want to make a point about this character strength, is because it's such, just practically speaking, it's a very long strength, appreciation of beauty and excellence. It's long for people that are kind of writing condensed blog posts, and long for people to say, and my highest strength is appreciation of beauty and excellence. Sometimes people will say, well, what does that mean? But still, we don't, as the first executive director of VIA said to me 10 years ago, we don't want to forget about and excellence. So even though we'll spend more time talking about beauty today and the different types of beauty, we don't want to forget about the excellence. And so what is excellence? Appreciation of excellence. That is appreciating the excellence of the skill of others. So it might be the excellence and precision of science, and to marvel at quantum mechanics. Or it might be the precision of architecture. So we marvel at an urban skyline and the way that the buildings lay out, and it's just excellent. I mean, it's beautiful as well, but very excellent in the precision of the architecture. And we marvel at the skill of the Olympic athletes, right? Who doesn't marvel at that? And it's incredible excellence that they have crafted their bodies to be able to do that skiing or that ice skating or that running, whatever it might be. So we marvel at that skill, and we can marvel at the skill of artists and so on. So that's the N excellence part. But I want to focus also on the beauty part here. That's often what is even more researched. By the way, for those keeping track of researchers, the leading researcher in appreciation of beauty is a wonderful person out in Montana, the northwest part of the United States. His name is Rhett Deissner, Dissner, and you can see all sorts of different studies if you're interested in that he's done, and he's got a new textbook actually on this particular character strength. So there's been a lot written on appreciation of beauty. And he has also led different studies of, well, how do you build this character strength, and can you build it? And he's found that you can increase people's appreciation for beauty. And so he studied interventions in controlled trials like having people do beauty walks, where they, like many of you have been saying, in coping with the coronavirus situation and being locked in, you step out and you take some mindful walks in nature, you sit out in nature, these kinds of things. And so that type of thing has been studied. We know from research that there's a lot of benefit from being out in nature, and a new term being thrown around that comes from Japan is called forest bathing, where you're bathing with your senses, you're bathing in and soaking in the beauty of the trees and the forest around you, or the whatever you have in your backyard, your tree line in your backyard. So he has studied people taking beauty walks and found that that is a way to boost the appreciation of beauty strength. He's also studied people going out and tracking their experiences of beauty. So you could get a pen and paper or your smartphone device and type whenever you see something that's particularly beautiful. And he asks students to do this once a day, where they look for beauty in art, or in the skill of other people, or in a moral kindness act between people, or in nature. You know, there's beauty in all sorts of different ways of thinking. And so to notice that beautiful experience, and then to write about it and to explore it a little bit, that's also a way to boost well-being. It's not a huge boost to happiness and a huge boost to well-being, but it is an elevation to well-being, and certainly to that particular character strength versus not doing it at all. So there's some nice research coming out in that. Now, when we look at appreciation of beauty and excellence, we can think of three positive emotions that you can create, three positive emotions that can come out. And you remember from previous sessions of United in Strengths, we've talked about just how crucial positive emotions are. They just might help us, actually, when it comes to our immune system. And they just might help us to feel better at this time. And so three positive emotions that are directly connected to this character strength: awe, admiration, and elevation. So awe, which is studied more and more these days by researchers, has to do with one's response to beauty, the beauty in sounds and smells and sights. So you go outside and you immerse yourself in the beauty, and maybe you marvel at the sunset. You experience a sense of wonder. Wonder's not been studied as much in this field, but a sense of wonder with how it all comes together in nature, and how this tree, I'm looking at a big 20-foot green giant tree in my backyard that we planted, and how that's just kind of flowing in all sorts of different directions. And we can look in awe at that. I've sometimes, because I'm high in the strength, I've sometimes marveled with awe at one insect and have literally spent a couple hours. This might sound crazy to those of you not high in the strength, but a couple hours just looking and studying that one insect. I did it with a bee once on my finger, actually. And then kind of wrote poems about it and so on. But so we can find awe and beauty in just those little things, or the beautiful sunset and traditional ways. The point is, though, to bring this emotion of awe about, we have to slow down. We have to slow ourselves down to be able to notice the beauty and see it. Some of you are going on walks and runs, and these are other ways that you can be in the environment to do that. A final piece on awe, very simple, is something that we often might not even think to do, but to arrange our environment where we're working. And we're all working, or a lot of us are working in new places now, in our home or wherever we are. To arrange your environment to see beauty and to have beauty around you, to not tolerate just having a stark kind of cubicle or nothing on the walls, but to put beautiful things. And to the left here of me, I have beautiful paintings and artwork done by each of my kids. And then I have some photographs of family and stuff. So I have beauty around me. And then I have beauty in the different things I collect. Maybe you've seen behind me. I'll maybe talk about that at some point, and to the side. So, and then I have beauty as I look beyond the camera here to the pond and trees in my backyard. So it's intentional to be able to tap into beauty in those moments. And so that's something so simple that we can do in addition to getting our butts outside and being in that kind of beauty, and more of a chance that we can feel that emotion of awe, which is such a glorious feeling to feel. Now, the next emotion that I want to invite you to feel is admiration. And so this has to do with appreciating the skill of others and the talents of others. And again, that could be a carpenter who is building a birdhouse or is redesigning your bathroom. And so to admire that skill. Or it might be you watch a documentary show on Netflix and you allow yourself to feel the admiration for that particular person, whether it's an athlete or maybe a magician. I love David Blaine as a magician and just deep admiration for his skill as a magician. So you can find admiration in all sorts of different directions. Maybe the admiration of your child that's showing you something that they drew. But again, we have to slow down to admire. If we don't slow ourselves down, we won't be admiring much. I remember talking to Jonathan Haidt, who's a leading researcher in positive psychology, and he, maybe 10, 12 years ago, and he had said that this strength is about not going through life with blinders on. It's about taking the blinders off and seeing the world around us. And the third emotion, the one that is most crucial for today and that we'll talk about the rest of the time here with our experiences with the clip and then the meditation, is the emotion of elevation. So this is actually a new emotion that was coined 16, 17 years ago by Jonathan Haidt. Haidt is H-A-I-D-T. And the emotion, it has three key parts, as all emotions do. So there's an observing component or some kind of stimulus component to any emotion. Then there's a physiological component. And then there's often a behavioral component. And so with elevation is a feeling that occurs in any human being when we observe the goodness or virtue of others. Not when we're expressing virtue. That's a big clarification. It's not when you're being virtuous or kind or fair or loving, ethical, and so on. It's when you're observing it in others. You observe someone with very good ethical behavior. You observe the kind acts of someone. You observe fairness. You observe any of the 24 strengths. And then you feel physiological changes within your body. So you feel the sensations of what the elevation researchers find is the warming in your chest. You feel the tingling in your extremities, like your hands and your feet. And then third, you're motivated to do good. So you're motivated to perhaps do something similar to what you just observed. You're motivated to be kind. You're motivated to be pro-social. And what's amazing about this strength, as it's been studied in the last 10 years or so, is that in study after study after study, many studies now, people actually are motivated to do better and often are kinder because of it. They actually commit more pro-social acts, more good acts for others, just by observing the good acts that they're seeing in front of them. So we applied that that concept of elevation to something that we called cinematic elevation in one of our books, Positive Psychology at the Movies, where we talk about 1,500 movies from around the world, and many of them are examples, most of them are examples of ways to feel elevated. So there's the observing of one of the character strengths in a movie character. You could apply this to TV shows. And so we can all do this on our extra time now with Amazon Prime and Netflix or your cable shows or whatever. You observe a movie character, and then in many cases, some of the cases when you're feeling inspired, you feel that those sensations of inspiration, tingling and warming. And then if you pay attention, you might just be motivated to do good. You might be motivated to do something subtle, maybe to solve an argument that you've had with a spouse. I've noticed that with myself. Or maybe you want to do one kind thing for a neighbor, that kind of thing. So cinematic elevation is this kind of global way to be kinder and to bring forth more goodness into the world. So I'd like to invite us to potentially, I mean, nobody's forced to feel a feeling, so we'll see what happens for you, but to potentially feel elevation right now. So, so Ruth is going to help us here, and to put a clip on the screen. And there's issues with Zoom. It's not on our end, but it's on Zoom's end of whether we can actually, because it's pulling from the internet and then putting it through Zoom and out to you all. So there's several steps. So there can be a little bit of choppiness in how this comes across. So Ruth is also putting in the chat room a link. So I want to invite everybody right now. It's a 1-minute and 20-second clip that we're going to watch. You can watch it on the screen, and be forgiving. It might be a little choppy because of Zoom, but also you could also just mute that and go to the YouTube clip and just watch it in real time in your YouTube, and then you'll for sure watch it clearly. And then what we'll do is we'll give an extra like 20, 30 seconds for people to transition from the YouTube clip back, and we'll move into the meditation. So anything else on that, Ruth, or can we get that going here?
I'm ready. I've
Okay.
put the link in the chat if you want to go directly to YouTube, and we're going to do our best with this recording here. So I'll start it now.
Great. Thank you. We'll just give another 20 seconds for people to jump back into the experience here if they're watching it online. Okay, so why don't we find a position of strength in our bodies right now as we sit or stand. First, connecting with your breathing to ground you, to center you. Perhaps allowing yourself to breathe just a little bit deeper than before. Catching your breath and then deepening your breath. And as you breathe, take notice of what's stirring inside you right now from the clip that you just watched. What stands out most for you? What are you most mindful of internally right now? It might be one of the people. It might be an expression on somebody's face. It might be one of the actions that they took. It might be one of the sounds made with music. Attending to what stands out most to you. Because that might just be particularly important. And as you sit with that image or sound or word, allow yourself to feel. Open to the feeling. Open to the feeling. And just seeing perhaps if that is important for you in some way, for yourself, for your strengths, and for what you can bring forth today or this weekend.